Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Hello, and welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons, and today I want to look at how you can lead a group to a decision. In fact, it might be better to say we're talking about how to lead groups to good decisions. After all, any meeting chairperson can push for a quick decision or call a vote before matters have been fully discussed. But that's not the kind of leadership I'm talking about, and that doesn't necessarily produce good decisions. A good decision is one that people buy into, and one that has a strong rationale behind it. Achieving these two things can't be done quickly or forcefully. So, how can we go about leading a group to a decision? Well, right at the start of the meeting, you need to set the stage for a good discussion and a good decision. Setting the stage involves a couple of important things. Firstly, you need to be very clear about the purpose. If you're meeting to make a decision, make sure everyone knows it. Also, make sure they're clear on the decision-making process. Does it have to be unanimous? Are you striving for consensus? Will you put it to a vote? These are not issues to be left to the middle of a heated discussion. Now, it's often a good idea to have a bit of a process to a decision-making meeting, and that process typically goes like this. Start with information sharing, then run through or brainstorm different options, then evaluate those options through discussion, and finally, make a decision. Notice that generating ideas and evaluating ideas are separate steps. That helps prevent people feeling criticized or getting defensive. Of course, people will bounce around a bit. You'll be evaluating options, and someone will bring up an important piece of information they neglected to mention earlier. That's fine and unavoidable, but overall, it's a good idea to follow this rough process. Within this process, leading group decisions is all about facilitating good discussion. And the magic of good facilitation is making everyone in the room feel listened to and emotionally validated. That can seem easy for the outgoing people who like to think out loud and are comfortable jumping into the middle of a conversation. But the deep thinkers need more time to articulate their thoughts. For this reason, when you think discussion has stalled on a particular topic, just wait. You'll be surprised what emerges after a minute of uncomfortable silence. Overall, you need to make sure that everyone has had a chance to speak and express themselves. Sometimes this means calling on people directly, or it might simply mean staying attuned to how those weaker voices attempt to join the discussion. If you're perceptive, you'll be able to see when someone wants to say something. Maybe they lean forward and open their mouth slightly, or they may gesture with their hands. Your job is to help these voices be heard. One thing you should be doing throughout the discussion is checking back with the participants for a variety of purposes. For one, You might confirm agreement by saying something like, "Okay, is everyone on board with this plan?" Take your time with this. Don't ask just once. Let the deep thinkers think it through. You'll also check back for clarity by saying something like this. "So, Tom, what you're saying is that the 4th Avenue location is too expensive?" You can do this when you don't understand someone, or when you know others don't understand an idea. Another reason to check back is to test for disagreement. You might say something like, "All right, thanks for that. Now, does anyone see a good reason why this is not possible?" Don't be afraid to play the devil's advocate yourself. Disagreement is constructive. Finally, you might summarize the discussion at key points along the way. For example, you could say, "It looks like there are 2 perspectives on this. Some of you are saying this is a good idea, while others seem to think it's not the best option." In this way, you're kind of acting like a shepherd of ideas, helping organize thoughts and ensuring everyone feels like they're part of the group. By being clear about purpose up front, following a basic decision-making process, and using your facilitation skills, you can come to a good decision. And remember, a good decision is one that people buy into and that has good rationale. If you're lucky, you'll have a great group of focused people who get along. But chances are, you'll face some obstacles on the road to a good decision. And in our next lesson, we'll talk about overcoming those obstacles. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the businessenglishpod.com website. There, you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. So long, and see you again soon. Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English. Hello, and welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons. And today, I want to look at leading a group to a decision. If you tuned in last time, you may remember what I said makes a good decision. It's one that people buy into, and people see the reasons behind. Well, that's easier said than done. If you're leading the meeting, you might wish for a simple and straightforward discussion that ends in one and only one logical decision. But dream on. You should expect a few obstacles along the way. For one thing, sometimes people can get a bit personal. I mean, one person makes a suggestion, and someone else attacks the person as opposed to the idea. It might be pretty easy to detect, like, "Come on, Dave, you always come up with the stupidest ideas." But it might be a bit more indirect, like, "Gee, Dave, do you have any other great ideas?" In any case, you need to shut this down immediately. Call people out for personal attacks, and keep the discussion focused on ideas, not personality conflict. This is part of your role as a facilitator. You're supposed to encourage people to listen, prevent interruption, and generally make sure people feel respected and heard. As soon as people feel attacked personally, they'll shut up. And you don't want anyone to shut up, because anyone in the room could be sitting on the million-dollar idea. So bring it back nicely to a focus on ideas, like this. Okay, everyone, let's just focus on the issue at hand. Or, all right, but what about the website ideas? Another thing you need to shut down is conversation that goes completely off topic. People do this without even realizing it. They hear something. It reminds them of something else. They start talking about it. Soon enough, the conversation has gone from the topic of increasing sales to the best place to buy muffins. Your job is to steer the conversation back. Don't be shy about it. Just come out and say, "Muffins are great, but they're way off topic." Even people who tend to stray appreciate this. Okay, so what about the people who love to hear themselves talk? I mean, there are some people who will go on and on and on about the same idea. Well, you can't let them go on forever. Once you realize they've made their point, find a slight break in their little speech and jump in with a summary. Try something like, "So you're saying," or if you need to be a bit more aggressive, you could say, Okay, hang on just a sec. As I understand it, you think." Another obstacle in a decision-making meeting is what we call groupthink. Groupthink is when people just follow along with the ideas being discussed without thinking for themselves, or they don't try to come up with anything new. Instead, people just accept what is being put in front of them. So, how can you deal with groupthink? Well, you can try to encourage some creative thinking from the get-go. Tell everyone what groupthink is, and then tell them to avoid it. Ask for some blue sky thinking, or off-the-wall ideas. One thing you might try is having people write down their ideas individually before sharing them with the group. There's actually research to show that a bunch of people thinking solo about a problem produces a greater variety of possible solutions than a group of people brainstorming together. Avoiding groupthink means allowing unusual or new ideas to come out. Often, people will self-censor when they think their ideas are not going to be accepted. But that's not always the best way to the best decision. After having people write down their ideas, then go around the table and give each person a chance to speak. The more you leave it to the really vocal people, the more susceptible the meeting will be to groupthink. Besides groupthink, another obstacle you may face is time. I mean, you've got a big decision to make and only 2 hours to do it. So watch the time carefully. And when you're down to 25%, remind people. Say something like, "Okay, folks, we've got half an hour left. So we really need to start drilling down on the best options." Don't be afraid to push them a bit. In most cases, people are willing to compromise than to drag an issue out longer than necessary. But if the group really can't come to a good decision, or if people really can't agree, or if there's just more information needed, then consider other options. For one thing, you might table the decision. A delayed decision is often better than a bad decision. Or you might assign a smaller group to make the decision for the larger group based on the discussion. Depending on the circumstances, you might consider either of these options. Regardless, what you're shooting for is the best possible decision. And as we've discussed, there are many possible obstacles to making a good decision within the time you've got. But if you play it right, if you manage the people well, and if you encourage good ideas and new ideas, you should be able to come to a good decision. Believe me, if you do this right, people will thank you for it, even the ones who seemed to resist at every turn. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the businessenglishpod.com website. There you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a complete transcript. So long, and see you again soon.
Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English.
Hello, and welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons, and today we're going to look at how to foster a culture of collaboration in the workplace. Collaboration is a pretty broad term that people throw around quite loosely anytime two people's work intersects or overlaps. But it's not the same as coordination, which is about organizing teams and their work with greater efficiency. Two different product teams might coordinate their product launches at different times, but that doesn't mean they are collaborating. And it goes a lot further than cooperation, which certainly involves working together, but doesn't include the idea of shared accountability. The marketing team might cooperate with HR to create a new job profile, but they don't have the same stake in the new hire. Collaboration is much deeper than these other forms of working together. With collaboration, people create a shared goal or purpose. It involves a lot more sharing of resources, knowledge, and decision-making. And it involves much deeper trust and requires stronger communication than other forms of working together. Collaboration might look like several people from different departments coming together to create and implement a solution to a problem that impacts all of them. So why should we work more deeply and broadly with others? Well, there are a multitude of benefits to collaboration. One big one is innovation. Innovation thrives on diverse perspectives. When different people with different ideas come together, there's a great creative collision that generates new ideas. Every business needs this kind of cross-pollination of expertise and ideas if they want to compete and stay relevant. Collaboration also supports shared knowledge and organizational learning. If one product team uncovers a new approach to project planning that makes them twice as efficient, wouldn't it be great if that learning was transferred to other teams? If everyone continues operating in silos, then it won't. Shared knowledge and learning also leads to greater strength and resilience. Think of a web of connections. The more that the different parts of the web are connected, the stronger that web is. If teams are sharing their experiences, if they know each other's strengths, and they are giving each other knowledge, Then when one team encounters difficulty, they have more people and skills to help out. One other important benefit of collaboration is employee engagement. Shared learning and innovation aren't just a boon to the company. They also give people a sense of meaning and accomplishment, not to mention connection with others. In the 21st century, college grads are entering the workforce expecting to be part of a team. There's a move toward less hierarchy and more shared responsibility. And if we keep telling employees to just stay in their lane, they'll begin to feel isolated and unappreciated. Of course, collaboration doesn't come with a flip of a switch, and it doesn't come for free. There are always costs to an approach or way of working. If you want two departments to work more closely, or if you want a group of people from different departments to solve a problem together, it's going to take time. So, if you want the increased innovation and impact that results from collaboration, you're going to have to sacrifice a bit of efficiency. It also requires us to give up control. If I say to a few colleagues that I want to collaborate with them, then I'm going to have to accept their ideas and approaches. If I insist that it's my way or the highway, they're going to see right through it. If I'm not willing to share the decision-making or compromise on anything, then the others are going to disengage, or they'll just go along grudgingly. So, if you think collaboration is important and effective, as almost everyone says they do, then you need to understand what it takes to make it happen. And you'll need to accept that having more diverse people working together creates a higher chance of conflict. That's why it takes great communication skills and trust. And it's these conditions for collaboration, along with practical methods and systems, that we'll look at in Part 2. That's all for today. If you'd like to test yourself on what we've just covered, have a look at the businessenglishpod.com website. There, you'll find a quiz about today's show, as well as a PDF transcript. So long, and see you again soon.
Business Skills 360, the podcast that looks at the other side of business English.
Hello, and welcome back to the Skills 360 podcast. I'm your host, Tim Simmons, and today we're going to look at how to build a collaborative workplace culture. Business is a dog-eat-dog world, so it's somewhat ironic that within this fiercely competitive environment, many successful companies foster a culture that is not competitive. It's increasingly common for companies to focus on collaboration internally over competition. In our last lesson, we talked about how this brings greater innovation, strength, and engagement. But collaboration is easier said than done. So exactly how do we create the conditions where collaboration isn't just tolerated, but actually thrives? Like many aspects of corporate culture, it begins at the top. Leadership really needs to focus on we rather than I. They have to prioritize team over individuals while still leveraging diversity. Collaborative leaders also know how to demonstrate trust and transparency. The transparent leader doesn't say, "Do this." The transparent leader says, "Here's the situation, here's the goal, here are the risks. What do you think we should do?" This leader entrusts her team not only with information and goals, but also with a stake in decision-making. In this way, both success and failure become a team experience. Without truly shared goals, authentic collaboration simply won't take off. And it's not just about saying these things are important. Everyone in the organization has to witness the leaders demonstrating trust. They need to see leadership support each other, rather than undermine each other. Without this modeling, it's ludicrous to expect collaboration to take root. Besides trust and transparency, this also requires organizational capacity and good communication. Now, it might seem like a truism to say that good communication is important, and it's one of those things, like trust, that we always consider to be the other person's problem. We can all say that good communication is important, but that's going to look different with different goals. Remember in our last lesson, I talked about giving up control? Well, when you maintain control, then good communication is about making your ideas, instructions, and orders clear. In this case, success means people do what you tell them to. But when you focus on collaboration, then good communication is about understanding others' ideas and doing the hard work of coming to consensus. It's a completely different ball of wax. And because both communication and collaboration take time, we need slack in the system. If everyone's already overworked, then how will they suddenly find extra time to work together? If they're not allowed to slow down, then how can they collaborate? Remember that every approach requires us to accept trade-offs. If we want the benefits of collaboration, we need to trade some efficiency. Believe me, in most cases, it's worth it. Of course, like any approach, collaboration needs to be supported by systems and structures. Collaborative workplaces often use cross-functional teams to solve big problems and break down silos. They might also create communities of practice, where people have the chance to explore new ideas and provide mutual support. They may have roles that are shared between departments, or people dedicated to liaising with other teams. Collaboration thrives when people share space, either physical or virtual, and when they share information and plans. That requires the right digital tools, whether it's communication platforms like Slack, project management tools like Asana, or CRMs like Salesforce. When information flows freely and when work is made visible, then people can see where the synergies are. Now, in all this talk about collaboration, I'm not suggesting every decision must be a group decision. There are some issues that are either simple, urgent, or non-negotiable. These issues don't require a collaborative approach. And when teams are stressed or trust is low, it may be better to focus on stability first. But if you think you're ready for the benefits of collaboration, then think carefully about how you will make it happen. Think about the trust and transparency required. Think about open, reciprocal communication and about building organizational capacity. And create the structures and systems in which people can work together. That's all for today.